From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 530 News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Russ Riesinger. The Montana legislature is back to business after the transmittal break, and lawmakers are turning their attention to the state budget. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian has more on the next steps for House Bill 2.
On Tuesday afternoon, the full House Appropriations Committee started what's expected to be a full week of hearings on the main state budget bill.
I'm bringing to this committee for consideration House Bill 2.
House Bill 2 is by far the largest piece of the overall budget picture. It lays out about $4.5 billion in state general fund spending over the next 2 years, and billions more from other funding sources. Since the start of the Montana legislative session, appropriations subcommittees have been making recommendations on each state agency's budget requests. The full committee will hear presentations on each of those appropriations, consider any proposed amendments, and then approve the version of HB 2 that will go to the House floor.
Because in the end, this is a product that we will take to the floor and that we are going to have to try to move forward. We have one constitutional obligation, and it's this budget.
Kurt Almy, Governor Greg Gianforte's budget director, addressed the committee as they began their work, urging them to support efforts to address violent crime and health care needs, and to look at ways to use the expected billions of dollars that could come to Montana through the federal stimulus bill.
We look forward to working with you over the weeks to come as you determine how best to use those funds in interaction with House Bill 2 for the greatest benefit for our state.
Tuesday's hearing focused on the first section of the budget, general government. Over the next few days, they'll work through the other 4 sections, with the biggest, public health and human services, set for Thursday. In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
Well, after the committee hears presentations on each section of the budget, they'll move on to the next presentation before taking action on any proposed changes to the first section. More information tonight on a weekend homicide in the Billings Heights. The coroner says the 29-year-old victim died as a result of a gunshot wound to the torso. 29-year-old Taryn Old Crow was shot Sunday afternoon at a residence in the 300 block of Sioux Lane. When police arrived, they found Old Crow unresponsive. He was taken to the hospital where he was pronounced dead later. As the investigation continues, police say they do have a person of interest in the case, but no arrests or charges yet. And tonight, a man is behind bars charged with felony assault with a weapon after a woman was wounded in a shooting at a Billings motel. Court documents say when police arrived at the Lazy KT Motel Saturday night, they found 37-year-old George Bosick trying to leave the scene of the shooting. He told officers the shooting was, quote, an accident, and at one point blurted out an apology and said that, quote, he deserved to die. Police arrived to the motel Saturday to find a woman that Bosick had a previous history with a shot to the forehead and a pool of blood around her head. Earlier that night, Bosick was said to have been persistent about hanging out with the victim, but when she said no, he got angry. She told police she heard a loud bang and then everything went black. He's due in court tomorrow for an arraignment. Well, aquarium owners, listen up. It's possible that an invasive species could be lurking in your tank. After wildlife officials were alerted that zebra mussels, a species Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks is desperately trying to keep away from Montana's waterways, were spotted in Montana. But this time, not from boats. Here's Q2's Andrea Lutz to explain.
After one of the busiest seasons for watercraft inspections in Montana,
everybody was stuck at home and they wanted to do something. So we saw a lot of traffic coming into Montana to recreate.
And the successful interception of 35 boats with mussels.
We are working really hard to keep invasive mussels out of Montana.
Liz Lodman with Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks says this new arrival was just not expected.
So having zebra mussels enter in this other unique way was really kind of shocking.
Found at major pet store suppliers nationwide in the form of mossballs.
Yeah, we were notified Wednesday from the state of Washington that they had found that there were zebra mussels in these mossballs. And so we immediately sent some of our staff out to check pet stores in Montana to see if we had that problem as well. And they did find zebra mussels and mossballs in Montana. We found mossballs in pet stores for sale in Billings, Butte, Bozeman, Great Falls, Helena, Kalispell, and Missoula.
But Lodman says luckily all of those found in Montana were dead shells. Still, the danger lurks in aquarium tanks.
There's one distributor that had the problem and it's gone nationwide. So they have found mussels in mossballs from Alaska to Florida. So it's really a nationwide issue.
So after such a busy but successful year of trying to keep invasive species out of Montana,
We just ask all recreators to just do the right thing and make sure their watercraft and gear is clean, drained, and dry.
another curveball to now watch for.
You know, if you have an aquarium tank, there are guidelines now for how to take care of a moss ball if you bought it recently. Aquarium tank owners just, need to take care with how they dispose of things in their tank.
In Billings, Andrea Lutz, MTN News.
Thanks, Andrea. Zebra mussels are one of the most devastating invasive species in North America. This species was imported from Ukraine, where it's native to that area. Lodman says she's not quite sure how Customs missed it. Well, with Democrats in Congress preparing to approve President Biden's COVID-19 relief plan, Montana U.S. Senator Jon Tester spoke with reporters today, explaining what's in the bill and why he supports it. MTN's Mike Dennison has more.
The $1.9 trillion package should face its final vote in Congress on Wednesday. And as part of this package, Montana will be getting at least $1.25 billion. As outlined Tuesday by Senator Tester, that money includes $1,400 checks for Montanans earning less than $75,000 a year and more for families with children, and an extension of expanded unemployment benefits at an extra $300 a week. There's also aid targeted directly at hospitality businesses like motels, restaurants, bars, hair salons, and others. Schools will get hundreds of millions of dollars to help them open or stay open and help students who may have fallen behind in the past year. Cities and towns will get direct aid. But most importantly, according to Senator Tester, money to help get more people vaccinated.
What's keeping people from going to work is the fact that they don't have a vaccine in their arm, and they're afraid they might get sick. This vaccine component of this bill really is the foundation for all the other programs that are in this bill.
Vicki Bird of the Montana Nurses Association said 11% of Montanans are now vaccinated, but that 745,000 adults are not and should be. She applauded the bill for its aid on vaccinations and urged Montanans to continue to wear face masks until vaccination is more widespread. Mayors from Great Falls and Sydney also said funds from the bill are needed by cities and by many Montanans who need help paying for basic necessities. Tester said while the bill isn't perfect, he felt it's a shot in the arm that Montana and the country need to fully recover from the health and economic devastation of the COVID-19 pandemic.
The bottom line is that this package will allow us to get this virus under control, get folks back to work, fully reopen our schools, and reopen our economy. And as soon as it's signed into law, we got to make sure that this relief fund makes it in the hands of Montanans as quickly as possible.
Some of this money will go directly to cities and towns, and of course to citizens who get direct payments or unemployment benefits. But a lot of it must be authorized by the legislature, with details on that process yet to come. Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
Late today, Governor Gianforte's budget director told Montana lawmakers that the total federal COVID-19 aid for Montana could be as much as $2.7 billion. Montana's other U.S. Senator Steve Daines voted against the relief bill. He reiterated this afternoon his concerns that the bill wastes far too much money on non-COVID programs such as bailouts for union pensions, money to expand Obamacare, and millions for transportation projects in mostly Democratic-controlled states. For the second straight year, COVID-19 has wiped out one of the state's most popular events, the Missoula Marathon, causing it to go fully virtual. It's a move that could result in upwards of a $2 million hit to the local economy. Run Wild Missoula says they worked to plan an in-person event, but decided last week it just wasn't possible. That race draws thousands of people from all over the map, and organizers did not want to risk spreading COVID-19. The virtual marathon will be held in late June. Registration is already underway. Well, here in Billings, crews at the Moss Mansion Museum are busy with renovations on the historic home built back in 1903. Well, the pandemic slowed tourism to the museum. Staff is hoping to bounce back this year with a mansion that looks better than ever. Q2's Mitch Legge takes us inside in this rebound report.
The COVID-19 pandemic was not kind to many museums across the state of Montana. Here at the Moss Mansion Historic House Museum in Billings, staff were able to use some of the downtime brought on by the pandemic to do some major renovation projects. One of Billings' most luxurious attractions is looking better than ever after a slew of deferred maintenance projects were able to happen thanks to a $400,000 grant from the state, secured by the passage of the Montana Museums Act of 2020 in the state legislature.
The fact that we were closed for COVID and it was kind of a slower year kind of worked out because we had so much construction going on and so many people in and out of the house that it kind of worked out that our tourist season was a little less.
Moss Mansion staff had already planned to close in March of 2020 so that flooring on the second floor could be refinished. The museum opened back up last summer, but more projects include roof repairs, modernization of the wiring throughout the entire house, and restoration done to water damage in the guest room. But that project isn't quite ready to show off yet. One renovation that return guests to the museum might notice are the beautiful new floorboards in the basement. The old boards were made of a soft wood and were rotting from the bottom side, with some spots that might give way. Luckily, the floorboards with historic significance were able to be salvaged, including spots where the Moss family chopped wood for heat and a section where the kids had a makeshift bowling alley.
It was good enough to keep. And it had historical content too. If we had lived in an ideal world, we could have kept all of the floor, but now it's a lot more functional. We don't have to skip over the soft spots.
With some renovation projects complete and others underway, this jewel of Billings will hopefully stand for another 100 years. In Billings, Mitch Laggy, MTN News.
Thanks, Mitch. Turner says the Moss saw its largest year for visitation in 2019 before the pandemic. The hope is that restorations on the guest room will be completed by the start of June. Up next on tonight's MTN 5:30 News here on Q2, second doses of the COVID-19 vaccine are now underway at the Shrine. We'll take you there, hear of the amazing efforts to put these clinics on. Then a little later in sports, winning one state championship, it's pretty difficult, but the Sydney Eagles, they just made it 4 in a row. We'll hear from them as well.
Temperatures were very typical for this time of the year. As a matter of fact, on the almanac for today, 47 today, average is 47 degrees. Didn't pick up any precipitation, but we'll talk about the weekend forecast coming up.